The fellow human beings that need love and support and care.
The division in this city is very, very palatable.
That division led many to the steps of the municipal building in Loveland Sunday.
We're here today to create some mental health awareness.
Much of this sparked by an incident Monday where an intellectually disabled 19-year-old man was shot 3 times by police responding to the call for a mental health crisis of a man carrying a knife.
We felt it was needed to come together as a community and to speak clearly about what's needed.
Alex's grandmother had called 911 and said that he was breaking things, but she also said that he hadn't hurt anybody and that he could be talked down.
According to family attorney Mari Newman, Alex Domina has undergone 3 surgeries already, with more needed.
He may well lose his arm, and he may well lose his life.
Which is hard on everyone in the family.
Alex's family is definitely struggling. His brother is also disabled, and he's having a very hard time, and the family has just been going back and forth to and from the hospital.
This isn't the first time Loveland police have been under scrutiny for the handling of an incident involving someone with mental health issues. As you may remember, the situation brought to light earlier this year involving 73-year-old Karen Gardner, who suffers from dementia.
This is a department that should have been well aware.
Newman says the Domina family appreciates the support, but right now are focused on Alex's recovery and
his family wants to make sure that this never happens to anybody else.
Always a difficult situation. We've dealt with it a lot here. Well, what kind of training do officers get for situations like this that they're responding to? David Katz?
Well, that's an excellent question, and that varies depending on the city or state that they're working in. Mental aided cases are incredibly difficult. First of all, let's take a look at it from the individual officer's perspective and then the agency perspective. The officer shows up and there's a man with a knife who may lunge at him or her. Well, there's really not a lot of room for decision making here. You're probably going to unfortunately employ deadly physical force. On the other hand, an agency has the responsibility to prepare their officers. If there is a mental aided case, there's got to be the appropriate response. In New York City, for example, if possible, the officers responding to a mental aided case call on emergency services. They have nets. They have other less lethal and less than lethal hardware that can resolve the situation. But these are really tough, and it requires a lot of training and a commitment by the agency involved.
Joe Stead, your thoughts?
I think we need to really look at how we deal with mental illness in law enforcement. And the reason why I say is because the training, they tell you to take control, they tell you to give verbal commands, they tell you to be real assertive, they tell you to scream, police, drop the weapons. And I've seen time and time again, and with even my own experience, that a lot of times screaming at a mental illness person, it just makes the situation worse. My first excellent police duty medal came from an incident that I had to respond to. You had a mental illness guy with a gun. He was underneath a bridge. Citizens was calling 911, and I was the first unit on scene. Once I got to the location, citizens was pointing to where the subject was. I was able to get behind the barrier and approach from barrier to barrier. And as I got close to him, I drew my weapon because he had a gun, and I'm screaming, "Police!" This is what they tell you. Challenge him. "Police, get down, get down." As I was reading his body language, I can quickly see that I was dealing with a mental illness individual. So I changed my approach. I lowered my tone. I started talking to him, but I was able to do that because I was behind a barrier and my body was protected. So I had cover. So at that time, I was engaging in a conversation, a normal, real slow conversation. By that time, you had 10 officers, you had a sergeant on scene. So after a long back and forth with me reiterating how important he is to his family, he was able to drop the firearm, and I was able to get him the help that he needed. But, you had a sergeant and an officer come to me and said, "What, you had the green light? He didn't drop the gun, so you should have took the shot." And I was like, I thought we was in the business of saving life. But the criteria for deadly force is, if the officer feels his life was in threat or somebody else's, they was allowed to use deadly force. So I think we really need to examine how we deal with mental illness, because the screaming and yelling, trying to take control, is the last thing you want to do when you start dealing with a subject with mental illness.
Great insight.
Yeah, great point.
Our experts are going to stay with us. More Crime Time straight ahead.
How many good cops you ever see stop a bad cop from being a bad cop? I've done it many a times. I've done it. You know what I got? You know what I received? Yo, whose side you on? I'd be like, yo, I'm on the right side. The dude's in cuffs. What you hitting him for? What is the problem? He ran from us. What does that mean? He ran from us. We got to tune him up. I said, what training? I didn't get that in the academy. We have a problem that needs to be addressed. And until we start having these conversations, right, until the rest of the world start having these conversations, we're always going to have this problem when it comes down to policing.